The seats behind the bridge, you should also just watch the game on the televisions that they stick
That's
on.
basically the only time I've been to MSG was to see a Rangers game in seats, and they were basically up there.
Oh man, blast from the past.
Wow.
I've never been to a hockey game at the Garden. That would be fun.
I have. It's cool.
You know what
Even,
the problem
even from way up, it's still good.
Yeah.
as an expert in the industry, the problem with hockey is,
Which industry?
I'll get to it. The problem with hockey is that they just do not have a good video game.
Some people, those are fighting words with some people.
I know.
Chow.
It's Alex!
It's episode 272 of View from 202. The Red Bulls get a point in LA, 2-2 draw to continue the decent start of the season, decent away form. It's the four of us, Brit, Cork, Sam, and Peaches, and it's a beautiful day here in Brooklyn. Nice clear skies, nice points for the Red Bulls. Nice, solid Arsenal win over Chelsea. Nice, momentous Knicks come from behind win. I'm told. How's it feel?
It's a big day. It's pretty brisk today too. I feel like that's kind of like there's a tempered mood, especially because of the Arsenal result, obviously. But
It does feel very chill out.
But you had mentioned there's a weird drain somewhere of energy, or like sink maybe of energy in the city.
I thought it was very calm and serene the last 2 days. Maybe it's just everyone at peace with Sandro Schwarz's Red Bulls. I don't know. Maybe all of the energy is just contained in MSG. But yeah, it seems weirdly quiet
We
to
defeated
me.
the evil tome,
But
at
in a
MSG.
good way.
Yeah.
You know, it's been very calm. I don't know what it's been like in Manhattan, you know, with everything that goes on there. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm the only person who's allowed to pull for the Knicks, Manhattan's hometown team.
Oh, I'm obligated for the Nets, I guess.
That's right. Finally putting Manhattan on the map. Finally, the Kings of 7th Avenue themselves are rising back to the top. Our Knicks, and when I say our Knicks, I mean only the residents of Manhattan. So.
You know what it is? It's because those freaking Mets are all the way on the West Coast, and the Mets, they make me so anxious. You guys wouldn't believe everything I go through following the Mets.
The Mets are personally attacking me, in my opinion.
I can't even stand it.
But yeah, that could be part of it too.
Maybe that's it. But the Red Bulls aren't really contributing to this agita, or maybe they're contributing to this relative peace in the city. Who knows? Their decent form continues, a 2-2 draw at LAFC, one of the more put together organizations in the league. Decent result. No? Could we have come away with more? Should we have come away with more?
I feel like I said this in the official New York Red Bulls Discord, actually.
Oh.
Wow.
I thought that it was like a deserved result that was unnecessarily dramatic.
Unnecessarily dramatic?
Yeah, in terms of like the timing with which everything happened. But I like if you watch it in real time, it's a little kind of disappointing almost that we can't hold on to a game like that.
You think it's all diva behavior on behalf of the Red Bulls
No, it's just
to be pulling results like this?
Well,
Think it's a cry for attention?
yeah, exactly. Well, I just think it's it didn't need to go like that, obviously, but they're preventable things, but like in a vacuum, I still take the result, and I still think it's a good result ultimately.
All right. I mean, yeah, if you told me we get a point away at LA, I would have happily taken it.
And scored 2 goals.
And
away.
scored 2 goals and had very solid chances to score 3, if not 4 goals. I don't care to look up the expected goals numbers, but we
don't have to, because we literally watched the game.
I know. We could just look at the highlights ourselves. Peaches, when you say, what was the adjective you just used? You said
Dramatic.
Dramatic or
Unnecessarily dramatic.
yeah, or like are you talking about needless mistakes with the penalty that we give up? Are you talking about the late stoppage time goal? Walk me through your.
Yeah, I think it's more that we are. Maybe it is a pattern. I was trying to maybe flag this last week as a potential thing to watch out for. That if we do try to keep holding on to leads and just not being able to generate our own chances, we'll suffer for that. Maybe it's still early enough in the season where we don't call a 2-2 cross-country away draw suffering, but maybe that kind of stuff catches up to us when we face in-conference opponents at home.
That's true. Between this and the Chicago game, it would have been nice to bag 3 points if you want to be a little bit more downbeat about this. But, to me, it was notable that we were able to get a good result from a pretty consistent spine of this team. We had a couple personnel changes. The biggest, of course, is that Andres Reyes was suspended for this game. He was serving his, regular, typical one-match suspension that you get for a red card with violent conduct. In the time since that has been announced, he's been suspended 1 further game, 2 further games? I think 1 further game. The disciplinary committee has given him an additional penalty.
Why are they bringing the book down on him like that? It's so harsh.
No,
the red card enough was harsh enough,
It was an odd play. We didn't talk about it too much last week, actually, but it was an odd play. I suppose my anger or disappointment in it is a little tempered by the fact that it was such a unnecessary thing to happen that part of me thinks it was so stupid and reckless of him that he's just kind of pushing his own luck. But it is odd for them to throw the book at him. And I guess Chicago's player did go off, which was sort of a lost in the fray or actually, no, it was actually fairly calm interaction. I think one thing that makes me so confused about this whole incident with Reyes at Chicago is that nobody seemed to be that heated about it. None of the Chicago players were angry. Maybe it's just because Chicago has poor morale. The other player who got hurt didn't seem to be angry. It seemed to be very procedural.
No one even seemed to be angry at the red card either.
Yeah, it was all very ho-hum.
Yeah.
But we're going to have to play without Reyes for another week. But in many ways, this is just a return to how we started the season. The pairing of Niels and Ayla, of course, started the first couple matches. They certainly have some experience together. So in that sense, we're not just going completely blind with totally fresh legs here, which was nice. Dylan Niels started it right back again, continuing his solid form there. And like we thought might happen, Daniel Edelman came in for Peter Stroud. Peter Stroud was announced that he had surgery on his Achilles, and they did not specify a time frame for his return. But given that sounds like fairly significant surgery, probably not going to be anytime soon.
As an Achilles expert, Sam, do you have any input on this?
Well, I already took Sergio Gomez's Achilles,
so
there are no others to spare.
You didn't take Peter Stroud as well?
No.
Okay.
No, I did not. But he's out of luck, so it'll take a long time. Wishing him a speedy recovery.
Yeah, and to Sergio Gomez as well, who, as we suspected might happen, had a surgery announced as well, I think to one of his knee ligaments, and he will be out for quite some time. So two potential midfield pieces there.
Also, Roald Mitchell is out.
Has there been an announcement about that? I saw that the Red Bulls
held
too.
up the jerseys.
They made the announcement with all 3 in the image.
Yeah. Not to make light, or not to, I don't know. Not to make light of a situation of tough injuries. The holding up the shirt thing is a bit odd. Usually that's something that you do when they're somebody
deathly
dies.
sick.
Yeah. Or somebody's
has cancer.
Child passes away or something, and now it feels like we're bringing a shirt out
to get
every time.
Yeah, to get a little bit of buzz.
Yeah. And
it's being being publicized.
It's a little inorganic.
Yeah, it's
Looks like it just kind of feels like they're looking for an opportunity to do a thing that they've seen done.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't
It's
know.
like, I want to try that. And then this is an opportunity to do that almost.
Yeah. Like I thought when they brought out Ngoma's shirt the other week at home, it was like, oh my God, what happened? And it's like, oh, he got hurt. I mean, okay. Yeah. I don't know. You know,
if the players themselves are and coaches or whatever deciding to do that, then even more so. That's weird vibes.
Yeah. A little bit strange. Gonna mix signals there. But yeah. And then our strike pairing at LA was the now familiar pair of Lewis Morgan and Dante Van Zier. Wiki Carmona continued to start. He started out on the wing alongside with Emil Forsberg. And this lineup was able to produce a chance very quickly, getting an own goal from a set piece. We see a little bit more production from set pieces in this game. But right before that, there was a very dangerous chance as both Morgan and Van Zier were breaking in on goal. And Morgan slid the ball across goal. And who else but our old friend Aaron Long made a last-second dive.
Sacrificial dive.
Yeah, it was a Pyrrhic victory for him as it looks like he...
smashed his shin into the goalpost.
Yeah, he had some sort of severe injury where he had to be taken out. And then the Red Bulls were able to capitalize not too much later on the set piece.
It was a pretty heroic tackle that he made, though.
Yeah, at first I was thinking, come on, Van Zier. But Long did get the ball in. Yeah. But I like that Morgan was able to trust that Van Zier would be there and just slide it across. I think it was not a bad decision for him to do so.
No, and I think maybe a more confident finisher could put a ball like that away. But yeah, it was incredible effort at the end.
On Morgan's part?
No, on Van Zier's part, I think.
I mean, does Van Zier even touch the ball, though?
Yeah, it gets a touch right before, I think, right?
I don't know.
Or like he gets a foot right by it.
I know I'm not a very good messenger for this, but yeah, I think he could have done a little better. Personally.
Van Zier?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I'm genuinely, I can't remember. I don't know if we got a reverse angle on it as to whether Long got a touch before Van Zier touched it or not, because I would have thought that would be a first timer.
When I had initially watching it live, of course this is me, but of course watching it live, I was like, God, Van Zier fucked that up. At first, I didn't even notice that Long had crashed into the goal,
all the way the other way,
or that it was even Long who dived in to make the challenge, because it was kind of like, no, yeah, he was able to pretty easily neutralize Van Zier there. Right. What else is new? So
yeah. Hey. But I'll have you know, in what may be the biggest moment of the Red Bulls season, nay, even the Red Bulls decade, Dante Van Zier gave some kid his coat.
I know, I should not be so judgmental.
At least 5,000 views.
I shouldn't be so
Facebook.
hard. I shouldn't be so hard on his actual play when all that is in the mix.
No, that is actual play. He's giving the jacket.
You're right.
You know what? This has dragged on long enough that I feel comfortable saying, maybe the team should have just given the kids jackets in the first place. They weren't just plopped there as an act of God. Somebody sent the little kids out there into the rain with the players. And you know who has a bunch of jackets? The New York Red Bulls do. I'm sick of hearing about these damn jackets. Anyway.
It's gonna pay for our next DP, so be patient.
I know you're not really a big umbrella guy, but I do feel like that's one situation where umbrellas would have been highly appropriate.
That's true. That's asking a lot of the team to have umbrellas, though. The umbrellas probably would have been Yanmar branded, and that's no longer our sponsor. So, we have to go back to
the Adidas umbrellas.
Yeah. Gosh. But yeah. Anyway, it looks like the team was able to create chances from the get-go and were not afraid to assert themselves on LAFC. Would you say that's a fair characterization of this game?
Yeah, I mean, they were particularly doing, again, I mean, this is just another area where Schwartz seems to actually be delivering on what we've heard from so many different Red Bull setups the last decade or so, where those overloads in the wide areas are particularly where the team is able to just kind of create danger from scratch. I'm seeing most often in some of these games. And it's just literally, passing and moving over in those wide corners and, isolating the fullbacks and drawing the opposing center backs out from the box. And, that was kind of where, the Morgan Von Zer chance that we were just talking about was more of a counterattack. But as far as just sort of the danger they were creating that eventually led up to that corner goal, that was another, kind of example of where you're seeing Schwartz, provide some danger to, or actually deliver in generating some danger out of some patterns that a lot of different Red Bulls coaches have tried to do for the last several years and not really, seen much payoff with it. So, as far as, the early part of the game and being able to put your impression on the game early, that's where I'm seeing it. It's another area where the team is finding, being able to kind of take it to those wide areas and punish those wide areas early is another way to avoid the trap that Schwartz diagnosed after the Columbus game, the Columbus route, where he said it wasn't really a defensive structure issue. It was an attacking issue as far as just not being able to use the ball to escape our own half and being able to just kind of pin the ball and the opponent's final third, even if you're not really creating a shot or creating danger yet, just being able to pin the ball down there is something that's been so lacking. Even going back to the Marsh teams that struggled in the playoffs, that was a dynamic that I always thought could be improved. Just a way, whether that's through just having a target man, which if Burke's not really around, this team doesn't really have right now, or if that's just, certain tactical and spacing setup where you get the ball into those corners where you can just get the ball to stick in the final third rather than having it bounce back and forth the whole game. That just, kind of opens up so many more dimensions for how this team is able to play, and hopefully they can keep it up over the course of the year. But as far as the early parts of this game and the early parts of a lot of games this year, that's what I'm kind of diagnosing is what's going on.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment to the point where, like, I totally think that what we're seeing isn't necessarily something that's revolutionary, where, obviously we've always had players rotate and overlap and, kind of play off the ball and play with the ball and move the ball. But I think it's this kind of choreography that we're achieving this season, where things are happening together, where I think
you mean it seems like they're actually practicing attacking movement.
Not even. I just think, like,
because I do, I guess, just if I'm going to make that joke, I do want to put it down from way long ago in my reporting days that I heard from multiple sources inside the team that under Struber, it was like not even hyperbole to say that attacking was not trained,
focused on. Yeah,
it was expected on the players to just hit it wide and improvise.
Yeah, that could definitely be it. Obviously, I don't know what's going on with the training sessions right now, but I think it's like the sequencing of it all, the timing of it all is just such more together. It's more, it is more fluid because it seems like the choreography is going well, and it's like one of these things where if a little piece of this goes wrong, it could throw off the rhythm of the whole kind of like machine that's going on, right? So it's like it requires everyone to be kind of put in and working together. And I think what you see this do is like it's suiting players like who I think like Ricky Carmona, who looks much more like a player who's finding an identity this season, and all these guys are just kind of like being able to contribute rather than maybe, like it was last year where like we had to just rely on someone to, and we still kind of do to some extent, where I feel like if we don't have Lewis Morgan playing, it's like we just lose a lot of all of our dynamic kind of threat on the ball up top to a certain extent. But like even with the backup support, like the guys like Elias Manuel, he didn't finish that chance, but he looks a lot better in general. He's like getting onto a lot more chances. I honestly, he's like reminiscent to me right now of guys like Timo Werner or like Nicholas Jackson, where they're like creating and putting themselves into space and not necessarily finishing these chances. But, maybe he'll be able to build the confidence and
we're stretching the field a little bit more coherently than we saw under Struber or Lassane. I had to think about his name for a second. Where, under Struber, we saw various degrees of sending the forwards out to the corners and hitting it wide. I think it was most effective in his brief flirtation with the diamond system when we had Klimala and Fabio running that together. After that was sort of abandoned, it felt like there was not much actual threat behind trying to stretch the field in that way. And it does feel like our forwards, including Manuel, have a little bit more of a solid ability to anticipate runs. Our back line and midfielders have more trust in being able to hit these sort of long balls and actually make the opposing back line try to anticipate and fear these moments. Under Struber, I think, also to what you're saying, Peaches, about buy-in, it did require like a Herculean amount of buy-in and focus and effort for that system too, but we weren't even having the choreography going forward or anticipation of passing patterns. It was just all about noting the pressing triggers and totally smuggling out play. So to some extent, I think that's just a dimension of the game these days where you have to be sort of bought in. It would be kind of cool if we still had a little bit of, having guys just stand around and do something cool individually every once in a while. Part of me wants that, but I think maybe especially at the MLS level, like that would be less entertaining to watch.
I think that just doesn't exist anymore, though.
No.
Yeah.
Although there was that funny tweet today that was
Chelsea
amusing, saying that Chelsea is refreshing because it is a team with no system or no plan. So
that's how Poch has them lined up.
Yeah, Todd is bringing us back to the good old days, amortized over 25 years.
I'm just gonna get my while we're going through kind of like the early parts of this game, I'm gonna get my gripe off that my East Coast bias gripe that too fucking late for a game. I initially had it in my head as like, oh, the game's going to be at 10. And then I realized, oh, it's actually scheduled for 10:30. And then it was like, oh, it's actually 10:40 and the game is going to be ending at like 1 a.m. And I was just kind of like, I don't know. I was kind of struggling towards the end. Now I know how Tony Kornheiser feels, fucking whining about West Coast games. I don't want to have to go through that on a regular basis. Fix it, Apple. Fix it, Tim Apple.
Pretty much minute 60 to when Forsberg scored, I was just like fuzzy gray area for me. Like I was watching the screen, but I was not conscious.
Yeah, it was just all flashing color. In your eyes. Yeah. That's the ideal viewing experience. Have you heard this concept people are talking about of second screen content? Or was it third screen content? Actually, Apple probably sincerely has like a whole like theory about how MLS fits into their strategy for that. It's the idea that people are designing shows to be put on in the background.
And they're having consultants come in and like tell the writers that the scripts are too involved and that they need to like simplify it so that people can follow the ball.
Viewers are getting
serious. So
viewers are getting too invested. You're making too many. I
actually felt a little humbled this week because I did watch the first episode of Shogun and there were like 2 times while I was watching it, I was like, fuck, I was looking at my phone. I need to go back and read the subtitles again. So it's a good exercise, but maybe that's, I mean,
it's what makes a subbed anime impossible for me sometimes because I'm just
I could see how like execs would look at soccer and be like, oh, this is good background noise, but it's actually the opposite because you kind of do need to be watching
to get
the
anything
whole game.
out of it.
Baseball though does work as background noise,
absolutely.
to be honest, and that's why there's 162 games in part. And I have been thinking about that contrast more recently, especially like now that we went to Citi Field the other week, it reminded me that the last couple of years I've had sort of bad luck with baseball games, not in terms of winning and losing, but just like the vast majority of baseball games I've gone to have been not particularly close. Like one team just scores like gradually throughout the game, and there's only been one game really where there was like a pivotal moment or like a big inning or two. And it's kind of a bummer if you go to a couple games and that doesn't happen. And it got me thinking about like, oh, what is the version of that in soccer? And as much as people, you know, sort of bemoan like the low scoring and how drab some games can be, the one nice thing about soccer is that it's much harder for that sort of thing to happen. You know, this game that we're talking about in LA is sort of an odd week to be bringing it up because there was so much back and forth here. But even in a 0-0 soccer game, you know, there's always that like
underlying tension
that doesn't exist in other sports, which I'm getting a deeper appreciation for, I think, this week, especially when you go in person, where you really have to be tuned in. And it's harder to achieve that in other places. Now, I guess the equivalent of a like the most boring version of a soccer game, I think, is one where like if on Saturday we had gone up in the 8th minute and just sort of closed up shop and then scored a goal in like the 40th minute and then just parked the bus. I think that's like maybe the most boring.
And then the rest of the game happened in the midfield.
Or like where you have like a 10th minute red card, I think is also very boring. But thankfully we didn't have that. We actually held on to our lead until the 67th minute. Yeah, it's actually that's a good call. The Chicago game's a good call. Although we still had that danger of like, oh, maybe we'll concede. Although really it was more if Chicago would concede.
Yeah.
I saw some discourse around this penalty that we give up, 67th minute. To me, it's not that controversial. I think it's a little weak, but like again, that's a chance where you create your own bad luck.
Yeah.
Awkward.
Yeah.
It can, you've seen it go both ways if you've been watching the game for a long time. Yeah.
I will say the VAR review, now that the strike is over, we saw the debut of the new announcement system. I hate it. I think it's satanic. I think that referees should never be heard except only in years later when a documentary is put together of on-field footage.
Yep.
I thought it was disgusting that they... Well, first, it was disgusting that we wear yellow, like the way that we do, I guess. But also that they just referred to us as yellow.
They did that? I missed that. I saw you recoil to that. Yellow?
Yikes.
Well, it's just like, the
yellow 15.
Yeah, 15.
I know that that's sort of like ref parlance in some sports, but it's still funny that they do that. Because like in the NFL, they just say like the city, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also don't like, upon further review is just ingrained as like a football thing for me. I don't like that it's in baseball. I don't like that it's in soccer now. Referees should be mysterious. They should be... Of course
it's upon further review. That's your job. You review. You're a ref.
It's just, you know,
you're supposed to be there.
The legalistic aspect and you know, machinistic aspect of American football. I should never hear a referee's voice. You should rule mysteriously through ambiguously similar hand motions and whistles, and then I just have to gain my clues of how to get upset based on how all the other players react. So I strongly disapprove of that. We will be smashing the machines.
It makes it a less international sport.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
The beauty of Mr. Bean is that he barely speaks, right?
Yeah, I do like to wonder, what language are they speaking? It really breaks the spell.
Yeah, they're really leaving out all the Miami fans speaking Haitian Creole that were in the replies to some tweet I made about Messi a few months ago.
Wow. Well, we go ahead in the 81st minute off of a set piece again.
Can I just say one more thing about the voice thing, or the refs speaking? I think the worst possible thing would be if, like, a ref had a really sexy voice.
This ref the other night didn't, thankfully.
No. It was like really nerdy. Like if they had like a deep, like kind of cool gravelly voice, I'd be destroyed.
It's like the
like gagged.
It's like the fake movie at the end of Pee-wee's Big Adventure where he has a weirdly deep voice.
Or if he just has, it sounds like he smokes a pack a day. Eventually, presumably, there's going to be one referee who's just like sucking air real badly when he's explaining it.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward. Actually, there's one ref who I want to hear give a review, and it's Baldomero Toledo.
I don't know. I prefer the mystery. The less I know, the better.
But for that reason, that he'll just be out of breath.
I don't know. Well, I just like he looks like a real sweaty guy.
He looks.
I want to know if his voice is as sweaty as he looks.
To be winded.
Yeah.
Well, we went up in the 81st minute. Do you have anything extra or anything particularly wise to say about the second goal? I don't know. Forsberg gets his first goal in the run of play. Nice little tap in. Another set piece goal.
Good for him, because it was another kind of iffy game otherwise from him, if I'm being perfectly honest. So.
I think a lot of people were saying that too, but he did get the goal, which is pretty valuable.
Yeah, I mean, I guess strike.
It was a center back's goal. It was
Chaos in the box.
Yeah,
strong finish. Hits the back of the net. That's very center
I'm
back.
ready to give him the maestro treatment over.
You know how I feel about a center back's finish, though. So, What?
Do I want to?
Oh, it's fine. It's the same thing as penalties. I just think they're clean and simple and good.
Oh yeah, I would love to have a Steve Bruce type player on the. If anyone were going to do it on our squad, it'd be Andres Reyes, and he's really preventing himself from achieving that status. But we get all the way to the 95th minute. Did you think we were going to pull it out, or were we flirting with danger for too long?
Bouanga had been, Dylan Nealis had done a good job of kind of keeping him closed down and keeping the threat somewhat minimized throughout the course of the game. But I don't know if I'm going to mangle the quote here, but whatever the IRA thing to Thatcher was, we only have to be lucky once. And that was what it was with Bouanga. Look at that great pull. No, that's a good pull. Bouanga was, just kind of, that was LAFC's main, kind of attacking strategy was feeding Bouanga and having him just dribble pretty simply over in that corner. And eventually he picked it up in that area, kind of recovering, I guess, the area where the situation that gave him the opening was the fact that it was kind of picking up a clearance as opposed to just getting a switch fed out to him that everybody could see coming from a mile away. So the numbers were a little bit unbalanced when he picked it up, and he maybe had a little bit more space and time to kind of carve out that shot that he got. But yeah, it was always eventually going to be just through, pure odds that eventually one of his forays was going to break through, and that was it. So
he's having a pretty bad season up to that point, I think.
I think he has been somewhat underwhelming this year compared to his track record.
Yeah. But I mean, part of me wonders, just even in that moment, like how he had so much space to begin with, and it looked like we had three defenders over there, essentially marking I don't know. They were like two bunched closer together, and then he was a little further out wide. Do we attribute that to anybody individually, or is that just like by nature of us just letting them keep the ball in the attacking third for much longer than they should have?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just I said it when they scored, and it's happened with other games this year, and this was kind of a topic on our episode last week. At how much the team has improved. I mean, we were commenting on how much the attacking has improved a few minutes ago, but also the last few episodes we've been talking about how much the preservation of leads has improved, and that this team is finally one where you're not as worried as you might have been in the past when they go up early like this. When they would go up early like this in past games, or take a lead with a lot of time left in the game, there was always the worry that they were going to have to kind of change their mindset and not press as much and drop the lines and bunker a little bit. And it eventually becomes a, situation where they're just kind of sweating out the game, not playing their kind of game. And, like I mentioned with Schwartz saying in the Columbus game where they're just trapped and can't get out and they eventually start conceding. And I think that's an example of what happened here where, maybe in this game where they go up early, and then they eventually, 90 or 80 minutes of defending, 80 minutes of trying to manage the game, they eventually let it slip away. But it's a little more excusable on the road. It's a little bit more excusable against a good team, and it's a little more excusable when it doesn't end up as a full-on loss. Obviously, you're able to salvage at least 1 point from it. So, it's kind of the nature of the game. You're never going to control every single game you play. You're never going to be able to be on the front foot of every stage of every game. It's a matter of coming out on top in the aggregate and controlling the margins that you can. And I think over the course of this season, the team is controlling the margins that they can, and they are, minimizing the bad performances and getting the most out of good performances. And I think that's all you can really ask for at this point, and just hope that they continue to do that over the course of the remaining 2/3 of the season.
Yeah, Sandro had a pretty specific diagnosis of some of the goal that we gave up, and sort of along those lines of like being able to resist the temptation of bunkering, and specifically on the goal, on the actual shot that Bouanga scored. Someone in the press conference had asked him like explicitly whether the ball had gone in off of Noah Isla, and remarked on the similarity of that to the goal that we gave up in Orlando, also fairly late on an own goal. This was not credited as an own goal. It's still kind of hard for me to tell how much it went in on Isla. Apple, despite having all the money in the world, did not show us a reverse angle, or the replays were very brief and cut away, so it's hard for me to tell. That said, Schwartz seemed to accept the premise that it did go off of him. And he commented that Isla in particular, it's like a very natural impulse, especially for a young defender, to want to stay close to goal, but specifically when the ball gets recycled out like that, to the like wide position, that it's something he wants to stress and work on with him, of pushing the line further up, to get out of the way of the goalkeeper, and just trust that the goalkeeper commands sort of that immediate space around him, which I thought was an interesting response. I thought it was...
I was just gonna say, it's nice to have like a very tangible and diagnosed, issue that he can work on.
And it sort of, it might speak a little bit to the problems that we observed about this team in the last couple of years of giving up so many goals on those second type balls, when it gets recycled out. But it was also very refreshing to see Schwartz comment on a specific problem. And then he did comment on Ayla's youth with it, but he didn't do it in a way that was like, these stupid young players, how like, look at what I have to deal with. He's like, of course he's young and we're going to work on it.
Yeah.
Which was a nice
and it's going to get better.
Yeah, and it's going to get better.
Yeah.
So, it was hitting the theme about like, oh yeah, he needs to trust his goalkeeper, and like the goalkeeper, can just work it out with communication. Much better constructive vibe out of all of this, that has me feeling better compared to last season, for sure.
I think it keeps going on. It does seem like we have a human in charge of the
yeah, game. I'm really coming around on Sandro. I don't want to overdo it and end
up in the same situation that we have like 4 managers in a row.
But
hey, this quirked up white boy
I've been
really
served. I've been served a TikTok recently for this one guy that it's just this German guy who's like, the first one I saw, he's commenting on like he's vacationing somewhere, and he seems to have found a cat like on the porch of his hotel or something, and he's petting the cat, but he's like terrified of the cat, but he's just has the nice softest little German accent. And then there's another one where he just starts filming, and he's like in the middle of a road, and there's just a random horse there, and he just starts like describing the horse in German for 45 seconds in the softest little lilting German. I have no idea what he's saying, but I want to say, German is a demonic language. Demonic people. Us Anglo-Saxons did not come from them. All right. Anglo-Saxons came straight from the planet Kolob. All right.
Yeah.
But, maybe I'm willing to allow a new chapter of German vibes, and Sandro is not quite this strange German boy talking about horses, but he's closer to that than some of our previous managers were. So I'll allow it for now. Elias Manuel almost scored a goal to win the game for us here. I have to say, disappointing to see it go off the post, but I think it was still a well-taken chance. And I think the way he created the chance for himself is something to be applauded. You know, I think he showed real composure in creating that chance, and I'm not inclined to rake him over the coals for that, even though I was disappointed to see it not go in.
Same, even if it's just on my general mantra of just like you can't. There's not a single striker on earth that finishes every single chance. Manuel's not even getting tons of minutes right now.
Yeah.
He's not, a starter anymore. So you can't really hang him on not having tons of production. And when he gets his only big chance of the game, he doesn't put it away. And I mean, yeah, again, just to go back to my mantra that I've, had drive home for a while now, that yeah, if every chance was finished, if it was somehow like an actual thing that there were teams that actually finish their chances and teams that don't, every soccer game would be like 10-7, and that's not what happens.
I thought you were going to say your mantra was that we only have to be lucky once. You have to be lucky every
That's
time.
my mantra too. That's absolutely my mantra. And it should be more of a mind frame people put themselves in for soccer. That's such a low scoring game.
I mean, we only have to be lucky once is a very striker thing. But my take on the whole chance is that a more confident striker might be able to finish that. But it's a difficult chance, and he did well with it.
See, I disagree with this because I don't think somebody lacking in confidence, does the neat little pullback there to create the chance in the first place. And also, it's a split. He takes the shot. It's not like I don't know. It's just a split second thing for that.
I think I mean confidence in finishing specifically, because I agree. Like, he created the chance for himself. But I think he just he just didn't have the right touch when he kicked the ball. And I think someone who's just like in that zone, the flow state, like the focus kind of thing that people talk about, just kind of instinctively were probably able to put it a little bit under the bar.
Fonseca would have tripped over the ball. And
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, yeah, I still agree that he did really well with the chance. I just think that there's a quality. There's a quality that someone could have to finish it.
If Van Zer tripped over the ball, I would have quote tweeted it and said, "That's our guy!" Starface emoji, starface emoji. Our Dante.
Nothing but family.
Yeah.
Family.
Yeah. We're playing Vancouver on Saturday. Vancouver, who are a decent side this year.
I had this circled on my calendar since I heard about it.
This is going to be the first home game or game that they visited us here. Or
well, like 2019.
Let me remember how to speak English. This is going to be the first game they're playing here in New York in a long time.
I think I want to say we played them in one of those first two matches in maybe 2020.
I think it was 20. You know what the last?
It was Matthias Jorgensen.
You know what the last?
I remember Alfonso Davies.
You know what I think the last Vancouver visit was? I think it was the game where Chris Armas told them to kick it at their hands. I think it was in that nightmarish stretch of early 2019.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
May 22nd, 2019.
Yeah.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Okay, I'm mistaking a Matthias Jorgensen again for like.
I think
that might have been a Matthias.
I'm worried
Jorgensen.
about you.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have remembered that.
I'm still sharp. But
it's also a missed opportunity. If in case maybe he listens to the show every week, I hope so. But Caleb Wilkins, missed opportunity to have you on the show. Friend of the pod, Caleb, and just a writer, Whitecaps writer who we like a lot. But he's also, I think he lives in Australia or something now, so probably times wouldn't have worked out anyway. But shout out to Caleb. Hopefully it's a fair game.
Yeah, I appreciate how the Whitecaps are alternatively just like complete pants or like pretty good. I guess sometimes they're pretty mediocre.
That's
too,
the Western Conference.
The Whitecaps, though, I don't know. They seize my attention more than the other teams.
I think
Like
it's 'cause
RSL, who knows?
Whitecaps
Colorado, who knows?
always have a good kit.
That's true. Yeah, they look fresh. Also, like having a just like random fundamentalist guy as their coach for 1 year. That's culture, baby. We should bring. What happened to Martin Rennie? Let's go ask Martin Rennie.
Oof, Lord knows.
And wasn't was it Dos Santos or the guy before him who also turned out to be a real weirdo?
Well, the current guy, Sartini, is a communist.
Oh,
And
great.
got suspended for making a joke about murdering a ref last playoffs. So I mean,
Pretty based.
yeah,
I mean, Carl Robinson was also pretty weird at the time.
Yeah.
I found him a bit weird. I found his agent a bit weird. Sure.
And you takes a lot for you to raise your tongue against a fellow Welshman.
That's right.
Yeah. So, listeners, don't take this lightly. You know who else is going to be coming back to Red Bull Arena? None other than Brian White. I expect a full Metro Reject chant from everyone
Yeah,
for
exactly.
Brian White.
What is?
much more like actual Metro Reject context than anybody else who's
I think
booed
this
the
is
last
good
few
scheduling
years.
for us because we're getting all this stuff out of the way now. Between Barlow and this being consecutive,
It's
home
cathartic.
games.
You know what? I'm just in pieces between Brian White visiting on Saturday and Wilmer Flores playing the Mets this week. It's been a crustable week. What's that tweet? I don't know.
Funk
Fuck
crustable
crustable week.
morning.
I need
Yeah.
to revisit the canon.
Britty needs drinky. But yeah, I mean, to use that segue, from what I gather, and this is mostly through intermittent seeing Caleb post from time to time. The way Vancouver kind of plays is somewhat kind of simple, low block defense, and then having White up top with Ryan Gauld, their Scottish DP attacking mid, who they've had for a few years now, who is just a clever little number 10 who sets up nifty little through balls and chances for a somewhat kind of smart, crafty striker like we know Brian White is, to kind of put away. Pretty simple game plan, but one that works a lot of the time, and one that allows them to, always kind of be in the middle of the hunt in the West, kind of like Brit was talking about a minute ago, since we're doing our kind of capsule look at, the Whitecaps as a club. Just, always kind of in the mix. They're never really making any flashy signings. They're never really doing any of the attention grabby kind of stuff that MLS is always giving teams an incentive to do. But they're always right there in the thick of it. They're never really bottoming out any year. They're always just, seem to be putting out, decent, solid MLS soccer year after year. So in that way, maybe a, good litmus test for this team. I mean, we've been talking recent weeks about how so many of these kind of big eye-catching games and performances and results they've had the last, for this first couple months of the season have been against big teams. I kind of think there's a lot to learn from seeing how this team does against, a little bit, less kind of cocky and favored of a team. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, if we're allowing ourselves to dream or aspire to the Shield, dare we say, I think this is a result that will tell us a lot about those aspirations, because as we said, after the Chicago game, dropping 2 points at home, not the kiss of death, not the end of the world, but if you're going to aspire for the Shield and you're going to drop a game like that, this is an example of a game that you sort of got to hold serve on and get those 3 points. So if we get a draw here, not the end of the world, but I will be noting that sort of in that context of if our aspirations are really to be at the top of the table for this season, this is one that we're going to want to look to bag. And, based on the team's performance and their comments and their attitude on and off the pitch recently, I trust that they themselves are looking at this with the full expectation that they're going to convert 3 points here, which is nice to say. I don't know if I would have said that for this type of fixture last year.
Yeah, I agree.
Any lineup preferences here? I don't know if we
I was
have
gonna
a
say-
ton of flexibility even possible.
Yeah, I mean, at this
What's the
point,
choice,
after
yeah.
with the Reyes suspension, Stroud injury, Burke
Is he still in LA?
Burke enigma. I mean, yeah, there's not a lot of wiggle room as far as picking your lineup anymore.
It's really just a matter of who plays in the kind of like right wing, whether or not that's going to keep being Wiki Carmona or if it's going to be somebody else. That's the only
Maybe
spot I can
Cameron Harper
imagine
coming
any
in
sort
or
of
something like that,
changes.
Yeah, Yengar got
He
15
came
minutes.
in, yeah.
Harper got a stoppage time sub in, but that's really the only thing. I just noticed maybe FUTMob is just bugging out, but according to them, we had both of our keepers on the bench last week. I assume that's not true, but maybe that's just the hottest new German strategy. 3 goalkeepers.
You never know.
Yeah, I'll be looking to see. Hopefully, Forsberg can play through it a bit and find a little bit more rhythm. If he doesn't, I don't know, beginning to note a pattern a bit there. But other than that, still hoping to get 3 points through this match one way or the other. Anything else on this one?
Favorite Vancouver food. Favorite Vancouver. What kind of chili do they make there?
Well, I did have a joke about how our battle against Vancouver is going to be to determine whether Vancouver or Brooklyn has the best ramen Danbo, which is basically the only Vancouver trivia I know.
There we go. That's your favorite food. Mine is still La Pizza hot dog, which has taken over the entire country of Canada. All right, till then.
It's Alex!